Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm just going to spend a couple minutes showing you one of my favorite techniques that I learned on Split Coast. It's called Wrinkle-Free Distress, and it was originally created for distress inks, but I'm using Distress Oxide inks today. I'll be working with this beautiful script greeting set and dies from Right at Home, and some Fabriano Artistico extra white hot press paper, which is a little bit of a departure for me. But since this isn't too water heavy and I won't be disturbing the surface of the cardstock, hot press watercolor paper is just fine. Now the cool thing about oxides is you can layer them because they have opacity to them. And so you can do crazy things like use complementary colors, like I'm doing here. I'm going to use Twisted Citron and Picked Raspberry, which, if these were translucent dye inks, would have the potential to make mud when they got together. But through a series of inking and drying the layers type repetitive techniques for getting the ink onto the paper, I'll actually be layering them and preserving those unique complementary colors instead of making mud out of them. And I actually think these two colors are really beautiful together. I was in kind of a spring Eastery mood when I picked these out. And that is the sort of fresh, bright look that I'm going for. Now I took a Ranger craft mat and I just cut mine up. My desk is not very big. It's not deep, and I don't have a lot of extra room on it. And so I just cut up my craft mat into smaller pieces that worked better for me. So don't be afraid to cut things up. I'm a stamp surgeon, but I'm also a craft mat surgeon. So now once again I've dried it, and I'm going to add some spiced marmalade to this. Again, another complementary color with the green. But I'm not scared of that because of the way these inks work. This one's a little bit harder to see on my craft mat until I get it wet. So you pick up the little dots of ink and layer them on top of the other colors. And a lot of times when you're doing these in the middle, they look like kind of a hot mess, but as you dry them and add additional layers of ink, they start to really come together and look beautiful. So don't give up too early. You might have something really pretty just waiting for a couple more layers. I happen to love the way these look together. I am going to try not to have too much white space, so I'm adding a little bit more of the ink in some areas that are still a little bit open. But I do like the texture of the droplets, and so I try to do that in stages. And I believe the reason that this is called wrinkle-free distress is you get sort of a distressed background without crumpling up your paper. So now I will clean off. I have one of Gina K's tidy towels, which I love. So I'm going to clean off my craft mat and add peacock feathers, which probably sounds crazy too. But it adds like this bright, vivid color right at the end that is going to make the whole background just pop. I'm going to use it real sparingly, but I do love that bright turquoise ink on top of this sort of more pastel colors that are in the background. Just makes for a nice contrast with what I already have. So I'll dry these. And then to add even a little bit more texture, you can see the texture of all the layers of droplets in the background. But to add even more texture, I'm just going to spray some water into my hands and then just flick little droplets of water onto the background. That'll give me even more of that oxidation from these magical inks and add an additional layer of texture to each one of the colored layers. And as this dries, it becomes more pronounced, as you can see here, where you can actually see what was going on with that. Just plain water. So here's a card I have coming up at the end of the week. And here is my card for today. Both backgrounds were from one sheet of paper. Thanks so much for watching.